Spy Classroom is one of the most popular series in the winter 2023 season of anime. Being a spy story with a colorful cast of anime girls and high-profile voice actors for each of the characters meant that Spy Classroom was able to gather over 100,000 people waiting for it even before it started airing. The story itself is pretty straightforward. After witnessing the destruction caused by the Great War, the fearful governments now resort to using spies instead of weapons to fulfill their agendas. Spy Classroom follows the story of one such spy named Lily, who meets a bunch of washout spies who are all assembled together by the greatest spy in the world. Together the group is called Lamplight, and they are tasked with an impossible mission with a mortality rate of 90%. With only a month to go, the girls now have to train under Klaus to execute this mission perfectly. The premise sounds good, the animation seems decent, and the cast is pretty likable and experienced. So why the actual is Spy Classroom rated an abysmal 6.49 out of 10 on my anime list? To put that into perspective as to how low that rating is, out of the 51 currently airing anime this season, Spy Classroom is ranked at 44th place, overtaken by the likes of an anime about girls wrestling, 2 different anime about gender swap, and this anime that I can't even pronounce the name of. But why is that? Well, Spy Classroom does right about everything right, except for the fact that the story is a rushed mess.
Spy Classroom is getting rushed.
Wait, WTF? We're only 2 episodes into this anime and the girls are already doing the impossible mission? Okay, so I found out the reason why the episode came out to be like that was that they're rushing the source material that it's based off of. Also, fans of the light novel have pointed out that they skip almost an entire volume in this episode, which even as someone who has not read the light novel, you can fucking tell. Okay, so what is all this uproar and outrage all about? What terrible things did the anime do to deserve this criticism? Well, to make sure that we're on the same page here, let's actually talk about the story for a second. In episode 1, we are introduced to Lily, our main character, the other girls, and Klaus, who is the owner of the Heat Haze Palace, where the girls will be training for their impossible mission that is only a month away. Now, as it turns out, Klaus doesn't know how to teach the girls since he's just that much of a badass. So one thing leads to the other, and they come up with a solution to this problem. That wasn't anything special or downright terrible, but there were some obvious inconsistencies which could be easily overlooked. The real issue that people have is with what happened in the second episode. Judging by how the first episode ended, Spy Classroom was pretty obviously setting up a training arc, and the start of the episode was the girls trying to hunt down Klaus, only to get humiliated as you would expect. Then halfway through the episode, Klaus explains how his previous group called Inferno, which used to be the best spy group in the world, was killed in that very impossible mission that the girls are about to take on. Even after hearing that, it doesn't seem like the girls are all that concerned, and then the anime cuts right to the chase with no training montage, no proper character introductions, or even some chemistry shown between the cast at all. As the episode comes to an end, the impossible mission has already started. Basically, they tried to set up a training arc, then dropped that idea entirely, and jumped ahead straight to the impossible mission without showing any character development at all. If that sounds bad, then you're not in the minority here. All the outrage towards the anime being rushed are due to major pacing issues, no character development for most of the colorful hair cast, and the anime skipping over major parts of the light novel. Except for the fact that the last point is mostly false. There are no missing parts to the puzzle or a major portion of the story that got cut in this adaptation. I would know that because I actually sat down and read the light novel. Comparing that with the anime itself, I would argue it makes for a fairly decent adaptation. But if the anime isn't actually rushed, then what the hell is everyone on about? What's the real problem? To answer that question, I decided to dig a little deeper, and I soon figured out that the problem lies in the source material itself. The author of the Spy Classroom light novel, named simply Takemachi on my anime list, has no photos or information available online aside from the fact that he was born in Japan. Yeah, no fucking shit, Google. And as it turns out, Spy Classroom is his first and only work as a novel writer starting 2020, meaning they quite possibly didn't have that much experience as a writer back then, and thus the beginning of the story feels a bit off. So the claims that the anime has rushed through the source material is for the most part pretty false. But then it doesn't explain how the light novel itself is rated a solid 7.75, while the anime, which remains faithful to the source material, sits at a below average rating of 6.67 as of episode 3. A prominent reason for people trashing on the anime is the expectations and hype created around the anime long before it even started airing. When the anime was announced, people looked at the cast and had one look at the premise and decided that this show was of the caliber of something like Licorice Recoil or Assassination Classroom, when in reality, it was always about being an actual spy show with elements of mystery involved, but having set the wrong expectation, they were nonetheless disappointed. Something that the viewers of this anime need to understand is that it is a mystery genre of anime, and I don't know if you know this, but mystery needs time to be set up so that the reveal at the end makes sense and feels satisfying. But unable to understand that it's supposed to be a mystery anime, the disappointed viewers went ahead and review bombed the series to oblivion. The story itself is presented in a way which works best for a book, but when adapted appropriately would end up giving away obvious clues for the mystery that it tries to set up. Since it was quite difficult for some of the scenes to work in the form of an anime, Studio Feel had to make some compromises. Their solution was to cut the entire part of the training montage to provide a shock value to catch the viewers off guard. And the third episode delivers on that very mystery aspect pretty well. The reason there weren't any character introductions or proper interactions was all for the sake of keeping the mystery hidden, which begins to make sense when everything unravels. And if a lack of character development is still a problem, then episode 4 and episode 5 literally cover all the cut content of the training arc and add extra bits of character interactions through going back to the training period before the impossible mission now that the mystery has been revealed. But the goddamn ratings remain unchanged. Which brings me to my next potential reason for the low ratings, and this one is the most likely, which is that people are pretty dumb. The same people who couldn't keep their expectations in check began complaining about how they didn't like the weird pacing of the anime. Others looked at that and began speculating that the anime must be rushing through the source material. You see, when an anime is said to be rushed, then it's probably a good idea to simply drop the show entirely. The misunderstanding between the rushed adaptation and the pacing issues of the source material itself ended with the anime onlys thinking that the former is true, and they dropped the show before it even had a chance to show the tricks up its sleeve. As the saying goes, your first impression is your last impression, and that resulted in Spy Classroom getting demoted down for the absolute wrong reasons. The people who've actually read the light novel are vouching for the anime, saying it did not leave out important details, while anime onlys are the ones who are openly complaining about the rush. But the word of the mouth spread nonetheless and spiraled into this mess of a situation where some people think they skipped over an entire volume on just the second episode, which is not how that works at all. And the conversation around the series devolved to the point that even big YouTubers like Chibi were under the impression that it is a rushed anime, when in reality, the light novel itself had pacing issues to begin with, and the anime is faithful to the light novel for the most part. But then why did Kadokawa even decide to adapt this title from an up-and-coming author? A potential theory might just be that seeing the sudden rise of shows like Spy Family and Girls with Guns genre, they decided to have their own version of that fame through a fairly popular series with Spy in its title and Girls with Guns in the plot itself. What's my source on that?
I made it the fuck up!
Okay, but on a serious note, it's mainly Kadokawa that's behind the making of this anime, and since they previously had plans of releasing 40 titles a year, fucking hell that's a lot, it means that not every title will receive the same love and attention from the studio. Last year, Kadokawa was also behind the making of Classroom of the Elite Season 2, which had similar pacing issues that the anime onlys despised, whereas the light novel readers could sort of get behind. The same pattern seems to be repeating with Spy Classroom, but on a much more brutal scale. The currently airing Eminence in Shadow is one of the best adaptation of a light novel. The first volume of that series was adapted through 9 episodes of content. That's 26 pages of content per episode, as opposed to the 50 pages of Spy Classroom light novel per episode. In the case of giant corporations, making money sounds like a much better deal than prioritizing the expression of storytelling through anime that may or may not become popular. As a result, the creativity and pacing are sure to take a massive hit, and in the case of Spy Classroom, the first 2 episodes ended up turning people away from this otherwise enjoyable experience that is only getting better and better by each episode. I began making this video under the impression that Spy Classroom was indeed a rushed mess, and Studio Feel was to be blamed for it all. But as I dug deeper and deeper, all I could find was no real substance to back that claim, but only a series of unfortunate circumstances that all strung together to create an unsavory mess of a reception for this otherwise fairly decent adaptation. Personally, I will continue to watch this anime to its entirety, which has been announced to be split into 2 cores, and from the looks of it, it's only going to cover maybe 2 volumes in its first core. There is plenty of effort that is obviously gone into this project, and the ratings do not reflect those efforts. Putting aside the shit show that occurred behind the scenes and sometimes on the scenes, I would argue it's a fairly decent show, one that only gets better from here on out. And as far as I can tell, you might be able to enjoy this mystery if you decide to give it some time. This was a long one. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video and tell me your thoughts on the series so far. That's it, thanks for watching.